What's up and welcome back. I'm Jon Stark from MacMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and today we're going to talk about National Treasure, Book of Secrets. I'm doing this because this year is the 20th anniversary of National Treasure, and there are only two National Treasure films, and I'm not going to wait 3 years to do the 20th anniversary of National Treasure. It just doesn't feel like a film to celebrate on its own. It's not even like the sequel was bigger. Like there are some movies where you can say, well, the right film if you're going to do it, like with Austin Powers this year, is The Spy Who Shagged Me was the sort of the film that sent that franchise over. This did not. The fact they didn't even make a third film, if anything, maybe argues that this film didn't quite live up to expectations. Um, but it does have audio description on Disney Plus. It's directed by Jon Turtletaub. It has basically the entire returning cast is here. We have Nicolas Cage, Diane Kruger, Justin Bartha, Jon Voight, Harvey Keitel, and they're joined by Bruce Greenwood. They're joined by Ed Harris, and Helen Mirren. All join the cast of the National Treasure sequel. So it's a pretty stacked cast when you think about it, when you really break it down. So the catalyst for this is that the ancestor, I don't know how many Gateses, if you think I'm tracking how many Gateses downstream, the great-grandfather of Benjamin Gates, I don't know, was somehow linked to the assassination of Lincoln. And so Ben goes on this journey to clear his family's name. Although this late, it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, we're in like the 2000s. Are people, because I mean, a lot of people did some terrible shit in the mid 1800s in America. And I don't know that all those people are necessarily generationally suffering as a result of it. If you know, you know. If you pick up on what I'm saying, I think there are a lot of people who are connected to things. A certain actor found out on Who Do You Think You Are, that the PBS show, the Generational, and tried to shut down an episode over it. If you're picking up on what I'm putting down, about what he was connected to, and I was like, no. So, yeah, it's kind of a weird. I mean, not great to be linked in the plot to assassinate Lincoln, I would guess, but at the same time, it's a time frame for a lot of people. So, anyway, but that's the catalyst for the film. So Ben starts on this journey to, see if the document is valid and clear clear his family's good name. And it sets off on this path. And basically, we get Ed Harris is in here too, as also as a sort of like as a treasure hunter himself, who's just not quite as good as Gates is, but is pretty good at solving riddles and stuff like that. Helen Mirren pops up as the long lost mother. Not really lost, but just sort of, they didn't show her in the first movie, so they're able to add Helen Mirren here in the second movie. And it has that sort of interesting dynamic between Mirren and Voight, because they're obviously separated, and you get those scenes, plus you get like mother-son scenes. And she is an intellectual herself, and speaks sort of dead languages and is very useful to the plot of the film. And then Bruce Greenwood plays the president, which this is not the only time he's played a president. So he also plays villains. So I don't know. Is he a better villain or is he a better president? He's either typecast as one of the two things. So yeah, I think for the most part, I think this is an effective sequel. I kind of argued in the first review that I did of National Treasure that we keep talking about how we can't build new franchises, and we keep looking like Indiana Jones. We're like, oh, we'll never be able to do that again. And it's like, you have multiple times, you just won't stick with it. Like, you just assume I mean, honestly, Temple of Doom was weird. It's kind of a weird film, and it's the type of film that honestly they could have abandoned Indiana Jones after the second film, and then we just never would have gotten the later films. It's, I mean, dude pulled out the heart. Temple of Doom is one of the films credited for needing a PG-13 rating. So, uh, lots of things like that. And there's a world in which Temple of Doom could have been the last Indiana Jones movie, but it wasn't. They pushed on. So I don't know why Disney didn't continue to make National Treasure movies with Nicolas Cage. There's nothing here that signifies this should be the last one, or at bare minimum that they shouldn't have aimed for a trilogy, especially considering there are probably plenty of American history to hunt and move through. The fact that they got the entire cast to return also signifies that they're building a world in which these characters can live in. So it's a very sort of weird last National Treasure film. I'm still I'm kind of rooting for the fact that Nicolas Cage makes another one. But it's almost like I don't know if it's been too long, and I don't know that anybody would care. I think these were just films that came out in the 2000s, and people were like, oh, those are entertaining, and people haven't given them much thought. But I think there's an alternate timeline in which National Treasure went on, and they made more films. And then this conversation about, like, will we have another Indiana Jones? Will you have another James Bond? You have to build those franchises. They don't happen overnight. You have to just kind of stick with them and continue to push forward on the character, even if the second film isn't quite as critically received as the first film. Sort of like with Michael Bay, like what he did with Transformers. We're still making Transformers movies. We didn't stop with that, even though by all accounts, there certainly are Transformers movies that haven't made back their budget. But yet we persevere and continue to make Transformers movies. So if you want it, you want it. If you don't, you don't. And if you don't want it, then stop bitching about it. Then stop, stop trying to act like, oh, how do we ever create this thing again? We're never going to be able to do it. We can't pass the torch. Nobody else could ever play Indiana Jones but Harrison Ford, so we're just going to run him ragged until he's dead. Even though multiple people have played James Bond, we can't figure out how to switch this character over. So it's all in this very sort of interesting narrative how these features work. And the Disney Plus show wasn't great. It wasn't really like a great indicator of what the future could be for this franchise. So it really does kind of need to go back to the basics if it's going to be doing anything. At this point, I would assume it would be a remake, revival, reboot. Because again, maybe with Cage being probably giving no deference to the Disney Plus show, and with Cage taking over the role of Voight, and maybe Voight taking over the role of was it Christopher Plummer in the first film? That was just sort of like reading the documents. I think it's Christopher Plummer. Anyway, maybe just like an opening title sequence type thing. Yeah. And you have to find like a new actor to take over National Treasure. Is anybody willing to do that? That's the question. It's a solid premise. So was Night at the Museum. We've created franchises we don't know what to do with. Meanwhile, Disney is going to make a live action Moana simultaneously while Moana 2 is it's mind boggling. It's absolutely mind boggling what Disney is doing. I don't understand any of it. I don't understand their train of thought. It's like, but going through this film again, is it as good as the first film? Not quite, but is it a bad film? No, it's not. I think I even kind of remember this film being worse than it actually is, but it's not that far removed from the first film. It's okay. It's an okay sequel. It's a nice follow-up. And it's the kind of franchise that, depending on the adventure and how it's set up and the new characters that come in and out, obviously somebody like Ed Harris wouldn't be in every film, so you'd replace him with a new person, so it just kind of depends on what it is you're going after, and that's how you change the franchise. I thought the audio description was fine. It's British, by the way. That was interesting. That was fun. And it's funny, the film about American history is being narrated by a British man. It's cute. But yeah, check it out. Anyway, I'm going to give National Treasure Book of Secrets a B. I think it's perfectly fine. It's a perfectly adequate sequel. It's just not one that anybody gets excited about. So thank you for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I will see you guys on the other side.